You're tuned in to Just One Hot Mom with host Nanika Ansari. Get ready. She's about to bring you that fire, that flavor, that heat, all that passion, and more from around the world and in your neighborhood. Stay tuned.
Hey, hotties, you are tuned into Just One Hot Mom, and I'm your host, Nanika Ansari. And as you know, fall has arrived. The neighborhood is beautiful because we woke up this morning. It's going to be a great day because I am here with Sharnise Sears. Hey, Sharnise.
Hey.
Am I saying it right? Is
Sears.
it Sears? Sears. Okay, Sears. Like the store.
Like the store.
Okay. You got stock in that?
No, I don't know.
Because they kind of went belly up. I was going to ask you what happened to the merchandise.
Right.
So, hey, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good. So I brought Sharnise in because I want to talk about unconventional families and the relationships attached to those families. So Sharnise, give us your background. What do you do?
Okay. Well, I am a licensed minister for the state of Ohio, and I perform wedding ceremonies, elopements, vow renewals, and commitment ceremonies. So I meet all different types of people every day. I'm also a notary public by trade. So.
Yeah, see, I like that. Like, I performed a vow renewal.
Did you?
Yeah, somebody just asked me, and I was like, this isn't for real, right? Because I was like, I really hope y'all already married because legally, I was like, I'm just up here saying some words that I got off of TV.
Exactly.
Hey, you guys, once we get started, if you want to call in, the number is 440-252-0518, 440-252-0518. And so I wanted to bring you on because I wanted to talk about, it seems like lately in our society, marriage, like we have domestic partnerships now. Mm-hmm. We have people getting married. There's same-sex marriage now. Right. So there are so many different types of relationships raising different families. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think any family now is conventional. So I wanted to talk about the unconventional family with you. Okay, so can you give us, like, what is your definition when you think of conventional and unconventional families?
Well, typically, when you think about conventional, you kind of think about convenience. What makes sense for everybody? We always hear about the American dream, the American standard. A husband and wife, 2.5 kids and dog, picket fence, full house, whatever. But we've shied so far away from that the conventional family looks like whatever you walk into. You're either going to have a single mom with a kid, 2 kids, 3 kids and a dog, or you're going to have 2 dads and kids. It's going to be, nowadays, you don't know what you're going to meet. And it's almost rare that you do find, a husband and wife that have been together for a long time, that everyone has the same mother and father and, no blended family situations. So,
do you find yourself performing more unconventional ceremonies though now? Because have you seen 2 people that meet, there are no kids, they have nothing else going on. Yeah. Do you find yourself though performing more ceremonies that are like they've already started a family and so now this is like the seal the deal?
Not really, honestly. Really? I have, for my elopements, more of the elopements are the ones where, they have no kids, they met each other, they just want to be married and that's it. So for elopements, absolutely. For my traditional ceremonies, it's still predominantly, just a man and a wife getting married and now starting a new life. So it's rare that I actually have a whole family. Sometimes I have pregnant moms and that's really cute. I love that. I have pregnant brides and but yeah, it's really not one way or the other. It's a mix of all of it, really. Now,
before you marry them, is there some type of coaching that goes along with that, or are you the person that they're able to call when they don't want to call the pastor? Okay. At church? Y'all know how it is. The pastor is going to make y'all take 12 weeks of classes.
Okay, yes.
It's got to be a year in advance. And, some people are like, I don't want to go through all of that.
Right.
Can they call you for that for sure?
They do. Because a lot of them do have that issue where if they are churched, they have that issue where the pastor requires them to do the premarital coaching and it's not really conducive with their schedules. And, it could be a list of reasons of why they don't want to go through their church. But honestly, the majority of my couples are unchurched. So I don't make it a requirement to have premarital coaching, but I always encourage it, especially during our initial consultation. I always ask, is this something that you want? Because what I do is I provide an assessment. Okay. That goes over about 300 different questions, and they're just personality questions, but it's really quick to answer. It's just yes or no, or do you like this, do you not like this, or they're very quick, so it doesn't seem like 300 questions. But when both couples answer the questions, I have a whole assessment on how their views are different, but how I can help them work better together. And in my personal opinion, from the couples that I've able to do that with, the whole process of wedding planning, even if it takes a year or 5 to 8 sessions, it goes a lot smoother, 100% smoother, because now you have someone that you can come and be real with and say, I hate this.
See, I think it's a matter of starting the conversation. Yeah, it's like, if I just call you up and like, hey, Sharnise, can you be here on Friday and we getting married and stuff like that? Like, you don't know. You don't personality. Exactly. You don't know anything about us, but I do like the fact that you can do an assessment, and there you go. Okay, so here's a question. Do you think that, because we brought up the church thing and how some people aren't attached to churches at all, which is really common. It is. And so do you think that there is still some shame attached to the unconventional family? Because, if you're in the church and if you've grown up in the church, it's supposed to be a mom and a dad, then there are generations that have attended the church. Do you think the reason that people are shying away from going to the pastor to get married, or shying away from going to church to get any of that counseling, is because unconventional families are considered shameful?
I haven't really honestly run into that. I haven't. The only time that I've ever run into that was when it was a second marriage, and I guess they didn't get an annulment in the Catholic Church. Ooh. Yeah, so that was talking through that process was a little deep for the bride, but it all worked out a little bit better. But there is a shame, there is a stigma for some people that decide to get married out of the church, and I think that's shameful. I don't think it should be that way.
But do you think that's the reason why people settle for domestic partnerships and kind of shy away from going ahead and saying, hey, let's make this legal?
Honestly, I have no idea. I do get a lot of requests for commitment ceremonies because they're in a domestic partnership. They've been together for years. But the only response that I get is that we just don't feel it's necessary. So I don't know if that comes from, a religious culture type thing. Like, we don't want to make it religious because you're not a minister in a church or whatever the case may be. So I'm not 100% sure with that one.
See, I feel like domestic partnerships don't necessarily... I'm probably going to play like devil's advocate here. Right. Like, domestic partnerships say, hey, we're together. And now that you can get the person signed up for your benefits on your job. What's the point in getting married? What, for you, is the point in people getting married? What does that signify? because you're in the business of marrying people. Yeah. It's like, well, what does that mean for you? Why should people not just be like, okay, we're gonna be in this partnership together. I'm gonna put you on my benefits so that we can share that type of life together. Why not just go ahead and get married?
Right. There's a lot of different reasons why people choose not to get married. It could be for government reasons. Just I get a lot of requests for people who say they want to get married under God's eyes and not under the government's law. Mm-hmm. And I legally can't perform those types of ceremonies because I'm a minister. I can't pronounce you husband and wife under God's eye when, I can't say that.
It'll be legal.
It's not going to be legal, and that's illegal, so I'm not going to say that. But from me personally, I was raised in the church. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I believe that marriage is holy. I believe it's something that it's a big undertaking. It's huge. You have to completely become not necessarily a different person, but a different person in your heart and able to be able to love and to care for someone else, to take all of their issues and put it on yourself, So I look at it from a religious aspect, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people just look at it as, we've been together, everybody else is getting married, so this is the thing to do, so let's get married.
It's popular. It's a trending topic.
Yeah, it's what we're supposed to do, right? We went to school, we did all this stuff, and now it's time to get married. Or we had kids, so now we have to get married. And when they don't look at the I guess the spiritual side of it, even if you're not a Christian.
Well, even if you look at the deeper thought process and what a marriage is, like if you don't look at that, you're just looking at like, hey,
the surface stuff.
Yeah.
When you actually do get married, oh yes, you're gonna go through it, and then that's what ends up leading to divorce, because it's not the picture that you painted in your head, and it's not the relationship that you've actually created for years that you've been together, or even a short period of time. It's definitely not the same. It changes. So that spiritual aspect does come. So,
and see, I was reading an article the other day that says millennials are causing our divorce rates to drop.
Yes,
do you find that more millennials are getting married and it's just us? I said us. Don't y'all?
That's old folks now.
As Generation Xers, right, are the reason divorce climbed in the first place? Do you find that?
Well, I read the same article that you're speaking of, and the reason why they were talking of the people that were getting divorced were the baby boomers, and they were the ones that were saying, we love each other, let's get married. They all got married at an enormous rate. It was ridiculous, how many people got married in such a short period of time. The people that, the millennials are now taking a step back, like, hold up, I really don't want to get to know you like that. Like, I love you. I want to be in a relationship with you, but I'm not sure if I want to take that step. They're actually taking time to think about the dynamics of marriage before they actually take the step of actually saying I do.
And see, as Generation Xers, we was like, we got a baby together. Come on.
Exactly. Let's make this legal. Let's do this.
And there were shotgun weddings.
Right.
Have you experienced a shotgun wedding?
Girl, no. Dang. This is Ohio. I hope not.
But do you feel really like people in our generation, because it really is Generation Xers,
it is.
Do you feel like they have abandoned the traditional marriage because we've settled for like, okay, we've been together for 10 years, you know what, we might as well just say we're married. Do you feel like they've abandoned what traditional marriage is?
You say traditional marriage, but
nothing's traditional
really,
anymore, right?
That's really deep. Abandoning it, no. I think they're just taking more time to process it because they don't know what it really is. So think about it. Our generation right now, we were the ones raised by the baby boomers, right? Mm-hmm. The baby boomers, the relationships that we saw was either the dad is not around or he's only around, abusive relationships. The mom wants this. She wants, that whole thing was totally different. I'm not saying all baby boomers, so please forgive me if you're listening and you're a baby boomer. I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying that the majority of those relationships, because they were shotgun weddings, they did not really have the firm foundation that they need to be successful. And a lot of them did just get married just because this is the right thing to do. So a lot of people have abandoned those marriages, and now we are the products of those marriages. So we take a step back like, I don't want that at all. So I'm just not going to do it.
We'll be quick to divorce you in a minute.
Okay.
Generation Xers, don't get on that
working. I'm out.
And so I was just curious because I'm like you said, there is no longer a traditional marriage. Right. Now, you just mentioned before that you were like raised up in the church, you're a minister. Do you often get some slack for people? Do you perform same-sex weddings or not?
Girl, did you just ask me that?
Or non-traditional weddings?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I've been asked maybe once or twice before, and I have said no.
What's your personal preference?
It really is. And one of the main reasons why is because I was raised the way that I was taught to believe a certain thing. Mm-hmm. And for me being 30 years old, a little bit over 30 years old, for 30 years old, I've been taught, for 30 years I've taught this, and it's envisioned, it's in my brain. I don't hate anybody that, that is in a same-sex relationship. I love everybody. I don't have anybody close enough to where I can actually learn and not just Googling it.
Well, see, I'm glad that you brought that up, though.
Tell me what you're going through.
Because I think also often people automatically assume, like, if you don't necessarily agree with something, that you're against it. But it's like, when you think 30 years, the 30 years is a long time to have a seed planted within you to be like, okay, all of a sudden the switch is going to, the switch is going to flip.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that you brought that up because I think all too often we're condemned for our beliefs.
Exactly.
And so when you believe a certain way, it's like, oh, then you're not forward thinking. But it's like you said, you need to sit with somebody and find out why, you know, and ask questions. It's not that anybody is against you guys. It's just that there are questions that need to be asked. A lot of questions all the time. Ask Robin on a regular basis. I will ask you a lot of questions. So that's why I was curious, because, you know, there are some churches that will perform same-sex marriages, but then there are some
and I'm happy to refer anybody, if anybody ever asks me that, you know, I don't say, no, I don't do this, and that's it, get off my phone. I actually refer you to somebody that will, you know, that is willing to perform the ceremony for you, because I want you to have whatever it is that you want. I'm the type of person, if I don't have all the knowledge, I'm going to accidentally say the wrong thing. And that's what you don't want out of your officiant. You don't want the officiant to say the wrong thing at the altar, because that dampens everything. And I don't want to be that person.
So what are 3 tips you would give someone going into marriage? Like, what are the 3 main things? If you had to, like, we're counseling, okay, counsel me and the imaginary, you know, chef.
Right.
And tell us, like, give us 3 tips you would give us going into marriage.
My first and foremost tip, and my favorite tip, because I have to live this every day, is to abandon all thoughts of what you think your marriage is supposed to be like. Abandon it. Just let it go. Don't even paint the picture. Just go ahead and shut it down and say, nope, that's not even real, because what you've created in your brain, no one else can duplicate. Flat out. Like, it's just not, you think that, you know, and a lot of females, I come across this.
I'm sure.
Even in counseling, like, she'd be like, well, here's the hamper, and he throws the clothes down right next to it. That's what marriage is. Like, is somebody doing something completely silly that you think is silly, but he has no recollection of the silliness. Like, so you have to abandon all of that. You cannot go into marriage thinking that somebody is going to be completely mature or all your expectations are going to be lived up to. Just let it go right now. My second word of advice would be to give each other room to grow. Not necessarily like, oh, this person is going that way, this person is going that way. But think about it. If you're getting married, and most of my couples are in between the ages of 25 and 35, and that's just me, not everybody else. That's just my couples, are between the ages of 25 and 35. 25 years old is still really young. 35 years old is still really young. So you're still developing and you're still growing. Like, I was even thinking about some stuff today, and I'm just like, dang, I thought I knew what love was at 21 years old, 22. Like, I was ready to get married, you know, but now it's like, I wasn't ready for this, you know, and I'm still growing. Yeah, I'm still growing. And my third suggestion is to, if you are deciding to go into marriage, make the commitment as a couple, just a verbal commitment between you and the person that you're in love with, or that you're going to have this relationship with, that divorce is not an option. If you can go into a marriage and say that, then you can have a successful marriage.
See, I'm like a proud divorcee, so I was like,
hey, everybody has their thing.
No, but you know what? I totally agree with what you said. Like, you grow up, and I think when you get married, this is just my personal opinion, millennials, that when you get married at such a young age and you grow up, you turn, like, I turned into a whole different person.
Yes,
and so you're growing into this new person who may not have liked the same things that you liked at 21 or 19.
Exactly.
And so now you're like, divorce might become an option.
Okay. But the thing is that so many people are quick to do that. We have too many options out there, too many resources out there that are available to us, that we can get the help that we need to be successful. Now, it's one thing. Now, I do believe in divorce. If there's abandonment, if there's abuse, if there's, you know, that kind of crazy stuff going on, absolutely. Do not be like, oh, well, you know, the church raised us to not believe in divorce. Divorce is wrong, blah, 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 blah. No, if there's some things going on that you just can't, no, let it go. But if there's little stuff that can be worked through, you know, and even people say this, oh, well, we can work on it, but he doesn't want to work on it. Okay, he's not going to work on it on your time. It's going to take time for people to grow, and you have to allow for that time. It's not going to be today. It's not going to be next week. It's not even going to be on your time schedule. You have to wait. Yeah. It's the struggle's real, girl. I ain't trying to say that it's easy. I'm saying the struggle is real, but give each other time and give each other space.
So have you noticed, though, that even have you seen your own marriage grow from you being able to see how other marriages are going? How has that affected your marriage?
Oh my gosh. It's really funny. I had a couple that was one of my light bulb couples. They had been in a relationship and they had a blended family. The consultation went great. We did the pre-marriage coaching and everything was great, but I could always tell there was something somebody wasn't saying out loud. And I had to keep asking, like, what y'all not talking about? What are we not saying? Like, cause y'all got that look, and I could feel it. And during the second to last coaching session, it was revealed that the parenting issues, the blending the family was becoming a real issue. You know, you're not boyfriend and girlfriend anymore now. You know, and when I asked the bride, you know, how does it feel to become a mom? She just started bawling.
Oh, she didn't have any kids?
No.
Oh, that's a shock to somebody.
Okay.
That is, no, for real. That's a shock.
And so she was
Insta-mom.
And she thought that all this time as a girlfriend and not being attached to the situation, that she was doing it right. And of course, as a girlfriend, you probably were doing it right. But now you're about to be a whole mother. I'm going to need you to let that sink in, you know, and raising.
That just made me want to cry. Like, and I have kids.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about it, though. Like, you are if you are young, you don't have any kids, and then you're instantly a family. Like, you would think that moms have a natural connection to their kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I gave birth to this person. Well, most of us, not all of us, have a natural connection. You have to gain a connection with some kids that you did not give birth to.
Right. And that's hard. And so we had to work through that. We had to talk about everything. We had to uncover some stuff that was very, very uncomfortable. And during our last session, I went home and I was just like, wow, if me and my husband wouldn't have went through it, I wouldn't have been able to minister to somebody else about it, because my husband didn't have kids when we got married. I had the 2 boys, and even still now we're going through, you know, the growing pains of being a blended family. It's not easy. It's not what you think it is. You know? No. It ain't babysitting.
Every blended family looks different depending on, you know, how you're blended. Right. But since you brought up blended families, like, do you feel, I lost my train of thought, do you feel, though, that you need to bring in the other part of that family when you're going through marriage counseling with those people? Because ultimately, like, they're not in your marriage, but they're a part of your family.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of my questions that I ask, you know, because we go over your support system, you know, what does your support system look like in your relationship? You know, your mom, your family. And then, of course, I asked, you know, how does, you know, your daughter's mother feel about your relationship? And, you know, that's when it started to all come out, like, you know, she's this and she's that and everything. And it's like, well, the thing is that right now you guys are developing a united front together as
so you
one.
You two have to be a team first.
Exactly. You two have to be a team, and then when you guys are solid in your decisions and what you guys, then you bring it to the other parent, if you guys aren't all on the same page. But if you guys over time, it's my hope that over time that everybody can start to be as one on the same page and everybody can be built in, but that foundation still needs to be built first.
Well,
and that's hard.
Specifically, especially because you have kids involved, you would hope that, you know, but we all know as women, do you think it's harder for women to gain access to a blended family than it is for men?
Like, what do you mean?
Like, for instance, like in this situation, like they already have a mom.
Yeah.
Now you're coming in as like the second mom.
Yeah.
Do you think it's harder for women to gain access that way? Because men normally don't, you know, like.
I think it's hard both ways, but I think for the whole mom situation, girl, when you hear your other kid calling somebody else mom, that's hard. That's deep. And I'm sure it's the same for men, but for a mom that went through those pains of birthing a child, and then you got the audacity to say mom to somebody, that's woo. She said the audacity. You know, but you have to look at it from a child's perspective, and that's the thing. You in those types of relationships, your child is the one who's most important at that time. So you almost have to turn your brain into a childlike behavior and say, what is my child thinking? How does my child view this dynamic? You know, how are they processing everything? And you got to do a lot of research. That's very hard to do when you're also trying to be the adult in the situation and trying to be the leader and trying to be mature. It's like you got to do both jobs. But I do think as a mom, I think it's hard because I run into it where the other mom doesn't want to let the other mom in. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want you to be a part of, you know, what
what they
we're
have
the
going
parent.
on.
I don't need you. Get out of my face.
Well, I can understand that. But since you brought it up, you said research. What are some resources people can use when they're in that situation? I'm sure there's somebody right now, there's a family listening in who, like, they want to get married, but they have this outside person, you know, who's like preventing them from moving forward towards marriage. What are some resources that people can use to get the conversation going so that they can, you know, achieve their ultimate goal, which is marriage?
First and foremost, consider marriage therapy. Family and marriage therapy, like, do therapy, love therapy.
I think people should just go to therapy anyway.
Just
like,
in general, just go to therapy. It's
like
such a
every
good
6
thing.
months, get a tune-up. Like, it's
just like you go to the doctor, go to the doctor. Like, go and get therapy, because even if you have to do it individually to help you process what you're about to step into, I think that's first and foremost very important. Mental health and trying to bend a family. Oh my gosh, yes, you need it. The second thing, what I did personally, because we had marriage therapy, but we didn't. I mean, premarital counseling, but we didn't. It didn't dig deep. It didn't dig as deep as I would have. Now that I'm in this stuff, like it didn't dig deep as much as it could have dug. But I would suggest there is a I can't remember the name of the author, but the book is called Blended Families, and it's not necessarily a help book, but they actually just go through. They actually just go through different scenarios of blended family situations and how each couple dealt with it. And I think that's important to see things from multiple perspectives, not just a one-sided, this is how you do it and this is what it's supposed to look like, because that ain't the truth. Like, it's going to look different for everybody. So, and then my last resource would be there's Blended Families, and I want to say her name is Rachel Scott.
Okay. She's been on the show before.
Yeah, Rachel
Better
Scott.
Than Blended.
Better Than Blended. Oh my gosh, yes, please.
They are a good resource.
Check out her resources, sign up for the newsletter, read it all, be on her Facebook page and everything, because you need that constantly. That is not just a, yes, that one.
You need a support system.
Yes.
Is what you need. I think that's what people forget, is that almost in every aspect of your life, when you think you can do something alone, you actually need a support system.
Yes,
people behind you telling you that you can do it. It's okay to focus in on somebody to get you to tie down and believe that you can actually accomplish this thing.
Exactly. Because what I run into a lot of times is that when you don't have that support system, like say your mom and your dad's been married for years and they don't have that blended family. You don't have nobody else to look up to or to ask those questions or even to speak life into that situation. You know, you have people that think about the jealousy side of it and, you know, oh, you shouldn't do this and she shouldn't do this and you shouldn't have to deal with this and da-da-da-da. That's not what you need. You need some real hard facts, and then you need some self-discovery. So that therapy and that research, that's what you need to focus on.
I'm really big on therapy, y'all. Like, I really, like, if I could go around with a shirt on my back that was like, go to therapy, I would. Like, because so many people need to hear that. But before we take a break, I wanted to ask you this. Because too often in marriage, we think it's going to be all fluffy and flowers and rainbows and unicorns. Yeah. What advice would you give about arguing and fighting? Like, for me personally, I read The Love Dare. That is like one of my favorite books, because it reminds you of, like, to be accountable for your type of love and to be accountable for how you treat people. But what recommendations would you give? Because ultimately, people, it's not going to always be flowers and candy and unicorns. What are some advice that you can give us when people are in the trenches of their marriage, even before you get to marriage? Because we know, like, planning a wedding will bring out the trenches, right? What advice are you giving people that are at that point, like, okay, I don't even know if we should get married because we get into these arguments? What can you say to those people?
Love ain't what it look like, what you think it looks like. I don't know. No, honestly, I've given that book to people. That is my go-to, because what that book does, and even the movie, Fireproof.
I love the movie.
Oh my God, I love Kirk Cameron. He's my boo for real. No. Oh my gosh, yes. But what it does, it just shows the things that you think about of how things are going to go and how quickly things can go left and how easy it is to just make a choice to go right. You know, it's real easy. We, just like I said before, if you're going to decide to get married, even if that is the process of saying, make it to where you say divorce is not an option. you need to be practicing that before you get to the altar, that divorce is not an option. And when you say that, I'm not saying that lightly, like, oh, divorce is not an option. You could just say that and then you're just going to keep going with it. No, divorce is not an option. I mean, we're going to do any and everything we can do to try to save this relationship. And when we both come to the realization that it's not going to work, then that's when we're going to take that step.
And I think the greatest thing I learned from the book is that you have to really, it is about self-love. Like, if you don't love yourself first, then you can't give that love to other people because it's always selfish.
Yeah, and when I give that book, most people think that, oh, it's about you. Right, no, it's to change your boo.
But I think, like, the deeper you get into the book, you really find out that you're accountable for the type of love you give. It's not about what you're receiving. I think a lot of times when people get married, they're like, this person's going to love me, and they're going to feel every love thing that I ever need ever again in life. Right.
He's not Jesus, girl.
And so I love that the book holds you accountable. Like, at first it's all like, yes, and what did they do? But then as you grow through the book, it holds you accountable for the type of love that you give, and holding you accountable for the type of I want to say, like, you've been deceptive to yourself.
Okay.
So it's holding you accountable. We're going to put the information for the Love Dare in the comments. And even if you're not married, I think people often forget, like, even if you're not married,
you can still read the book.
You can still read the book because you can actually apply it to different areas of how you
even
love
to your
people.
children, because I have the one for children.
I have the one for children too. So there's a Love Dare book as far as like a marriage relationship, and then there's one for children. But it really is like you can use it towards friendships. Like, I found myself using it and holding myself accountable in other relationships.
Absolutely.
Hotties, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get into the unconventional family. We'll talk to you in a moment. Hey hotties, welcome back. You are tuned in to Just One Hot Mom, and I'm your host, Nanika Ansari, and I'm here with Sharnise Sears, and we are talking marriage. Now, we took a break, y'all, and I was going to come back and talk about unconventional families, but I still have marriage questions for Sharnise, because we just had a good little discussion in here about, before you marry somebody, how you act, and then after you marry them, you get settled into that. So how do people keep it fresh? Now, I'm solely changing the interview. Don't be mad at me.
No, you're fine.
But how do you keep it fresh? Like, the wedding is the thing that everybody builds up to. Yeah. They're excited about it. And that's just one day. You planning a lifetime with this person. What advice can you give the couples to keep it fresh and keep it popping and happy after that one magical day?
Right. I think that it's important to constantly date each other. Like, when you're dating somebody and babe calls and say, I'm on my way, you get it.
You get giggles. Like,
you get all excited and you're like, let me hurry up, let me change my clothes and everything. That is the same exact thing that you should be doing in your marriage. When your husband is on his way home from work, you better be scrambling to make them kids scramble too and get ready, and it don't have to be perfect or whatever, but give your husband something to look at. I try to live by that. I'm not perfect, but give him something to look at, girl, because he will be looking at somebody else, which you won't say, and the same thing for husbands. Like, give your wife something to look at. You don't have much to do, so the least you can do is put on some cologne. If you got earrings, throw them earrings on, boo. Just look nice for me. Smell good.
Tell y'all, fellas, honey, yes, that fresh haircut and that cologne could change the whole game.
Change it all.
If I can smell you, and I'm not talking about heavy, thick cologne, I'm talking about that cologne that I like. If I smell that, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and not just when you about to leave the house, because that...
High five.
Okay, you want to you want to start some mess? Put on some cologne before you leave out the house. Put on the gray sweatpants if you want to.
I'm not messing with her here. Those gray sweatpants gonna get a lot of y'all in trouble.
Okay, my husband is not allowed to leave the house, so if you see him with them gray sweatpants, send him right back home.
But I was just thinking, because we live in a society that tells us, like, we do everything for us, like, look good for you, do this for you. Right. But when you're sharing a life with somebody, you should want to express those type of love and do things for the both of you.
Exactly.
And so in the society where we're often told, like, think of ourselves, how can people survive in relationships if we're constantly just thinking about ourselves?
You have to learn how to blend that. And that's not an easy thing to do, especially while you're trying to grow as an individual. Your marriage, when you learn how to put your marriage first, when you say, my marriage is first, but I'm important too, it doesn't have to be separate. It's you being okay is just as important as your relationship being okay. So that's something that you have to figure out. You have to take the steps to make sure I'm okay, make sure my relationship okay. Just like most of us, are in a blended family. You have to make sure you're okay. You have to make sure your children okay. If you can do both with that, you can do the same thing with your relationship. When you put your marriage first and you put yourself important, everything else will fall into place and you don't have to, be overwhelmed. But yeah.
Sharnise getting herself in trouble with all these questions. So now I got another one. Okay, can you explain to people, because I get this one all the time, why you have to put your husband, ladies, ahead of your children? Can you explain? Because people be like, no, my kids come first and everything. I said your husband, though. Let's be very specific. Your husband, not the man that you...
I'm about to get in trouble with this response. Lord, Jesus,
I'm just saying that's the way we grew up in the church. Like, if it's your husband, he should come before your children. But I said husband. I'm going to keep emphasizing that because some people
think that your boyfriend is your husband and it really ain't.
No, your husband. So can you tell us that?
Oh, Jesus, my stomach just dropped. Okay, y'all ready?
I'm going to back up. Okay. Y'all don't mess with her.
Children are a temporary assignment, first and foremost.
So type video. Hold on.
And do not take this the wrong way, ladies, gentlemen. Children are a temporary assignment as far as your thorough involvement with them. We have our children for life. Yes, when they turn 30, you still have a responsibility to still parent them, give them sound advice and whatnot. But ultimately, your assignment, as far as the one-on-one care, is very temporary with them. And we realize that when we have our infants, you only have a blink of an eye with them. It's so quick. That assignment is over. Now they're a toddler. That assignment's over. Now you have a teenager, and then now you have an adult. And there's this particular way that you have to parent an adult child. Now, when that child becomes an adult, you have to let go. And when you have not put your relationship first, when you have not put your husband first, you won't be able to let go. You'll be so invested in your child still that you're going to neglect everything. You're going to neglect your husband. Y'all not going to have nothing to look forward to. Y'all going to look up and realize your kids have a whole nother life that you trying to weave your way through, trying to push yourself and be a part of. When they trying to grow up and be adults, they need to cut it off, girl. Cut it off. So, from the biblical standpoint, when you have God being first and foremost in your life, and you have the husband, the God, he instituted that the man is the head of the household. He's the leader. He's the provider. He's the protector, just like God the Father is. He's your king on earth. Now you have the wife who is the helpmate. Then you have your children. Now, with that being said, when that husband decides to just misalign himself, you and your children are still under God's protection and his covering. So that is already taken care of. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, when your husband is off doing whatever he's doing and he's completely out of line, you don't have to worry about that. So. And
see, I'm glad you said that, because I want people to think before you get married, if God's already given us the order, like it's him, then the husband, then you, and you're all protected. Think about that before you marry a person. Yeah. Think about if that's somebody you want to be under their authority, because we don't really think about that a lot. We just see like he can pay the bills.
Right.
He's a good father, but we don't think about just think about this is the last days on earth. Is this the person you will want?
Yeah, is he submitting
guiding
to God?
You? Right.
Yeah, if he's submitting to God, can you actually submit to him? Where is he leading you to? Like, what is he being the leader of? And where is we going? Those are questions that you need to explore before you get married, even before you have a kid with somebody. But we all know that don't always work out that way. So, but when you get to the point where you consider marriage, you definitely have to consider that.
And see, that's okay. So let's bring that up. What are questions? Are there different questions that men and women should ask before they get married, or are all the questions basically the same?
Yes and no. I would say that they would be about the same, because I was thinking about, my point that I just made about leadership. Where are we going? Where are you leading this to? If the husband decides to, misalign himself, before marriage, he still needs to know, if I fall off the map, is my wife still going to be able to lead these kids? You know, she's still going to be under God's authority. Is she going to be strong enough to still do what she's supposed to do? Can I depend on her in that way? Because trust and believe, at some point in your relationship, somebody going to do something they ain't supposed to do and be completely out of line. And you have to be willing and ready to cover that person and to step up and do what that person can't do at that time. You can't go into a marriage and think it's going to be otherwise.
And see, I think this is all good information before we get there. But let's ask, what questions are people not asking before they get married that they should be asking?
What is your credit score?
No, but for real.
No, but seriously, because that is you should ask all financial, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional questions, all of them. You know, how is your emotional stability? Are you okay? You know, how is your mental stability? How did you grow up? What does your financial stability look like? What does your spiritual life look like? You know, all of those things need to be explored before you actually get into a relationship. Now, I'm going to say that because a lot of people think that, you go on a date and you're supposed to everything is supposed to be like, yeah, maybe for the first or 2 days. But for me personally, when I got serious about dating, when I shifted my focus to say, okay, I want to be a wife, I want a husband, I got to stop playing all these games for real. You know, I got to get serious about that. I still had to protect my time because people would say, I'm going to take you out on a date. Tell me on Friday, I'll get a babysitter, and then dude wouldn't show up. That's a problem. So I had to get serious about protecting my time. Before I get to know you like that, or before I even allow you in my space like that, let me figure out who you are first. I'm going to ask them questions before we go on our first date. I think that's most important. A lot of people are scared to do that.
Well, see, I think the seed has been planted that if I ask you any financial questions, I'm a gold digger. But I can't really, right.
Weeds out the riffraff. No, I'm just playing.
But I'm glad you brought that up because people should be able to ask those questions.
And you should be confident in responding.
Because here it is, you at the family reunion, you don't even know that back in the day that he had, used to wear a helmet or something. You don't know
or that he paying his baby mama's rent.
Right. Or that the baby mama is still involved with the whole entire family.
Or he got cars in so-and-so's name to his name, his cars in his baby mama's name. That's stuff that you want to find out. But that is stuff that you should ask.
But I think we don't want to come off as a gold digger. We don't want to come off as aggressive.
Then you're the wrong one. I'm sorry. I mean, I would say on the very first date, if you're not going to do what I just told you to do with asking all the questions before you allow somebody in your space like that, and you're going to go on a date and you're going to wing it, I wouldn't say ask those questions on the first date. That is kind of weird.
I don't know. We've been talking on the phone for a minute. Okay. I see you in person, I'll be like, your credit score.
Okay, yeah. And the thing is that it's not even you don't have to be so deep with it, but you can get down to, you can still figure it out. Hey, what's going on with your spiritual life? I did date somebody who literally walked out on our date when I asked him about God. He was like, my relationship with God is personal. Well, get out of here. There. And I was just like, okay, sir, good day to you, And that's, you already know, somebody who's not even mature enough to have those conversations, that's a red flag.
But you brought up something just a minute ago. It's we have to have a mindset of marriage. All too often we're out here dating and we don't have a marriage mindset.
Exactly. You just dating out here willy-nilly.
And I think that's fine. I think people should date. My friend Clotia calls it collecting data. Okay. So you're dating and you're collecting data from a person. But when you get that marriage mindset, I think that you really need to be focused in on
exactly.
I think that's the time when you ask those questions. Yeah. When you're in the okay, I'm done dating. I'm done playing around. Because everybody wants to date. You want free dinners. Don't lie, ladies. Do not lie. You want to go to dinner. You want to go to movies. You want to do special stuff, but you might not have a marriage mindset. Exactly. And we also need to realize too that every date or encounter is not going to lead to marriage. So stop thinking everybody you date is this is the one.
It's not.
And then you introduce them to everybody, and everybody's like, this is not the one. Yeah. So, and I'm saying that specifically for our ladies because I run into a lot of women who are like, this is the one. The next week they with somebody else, and I'm like, I thought. Right. I had my dress ready and picked out.
Right.
What can you tell people though, since we're going to talk all things marriage now, people?
Yeah.
couples who have friends who are on the fence about their marriage, how are you telling them to deal with outside sources when it comes to their marriage? That's family, friends, because everybody has an opinion, right?
Yeah. You have to protect your marriage at all costs. First and foremost, you have to, if you could just envision it, you and your husband together just build this whole entire bubble that can't nobody touch. You guys have to be Teflon, okay? Mm-hmm. And I love this last couple that I married. In their vows, it was just the cutest thing. But they said, this BK thing, oh, we're unstoppable, we're untouchable, can't nobody touch this. And I love that because they was dead serious. I mean, they had been dating for over 10 years, and they just had this beautiful relationship, but they wouldn't let nobody mess it up. Now, they did have some issues during the planning process or whatever. They had some issues because they wasn't ready for it. They didn't know that, they didn't realize the spiritual aspect of, two becoming one. They did, but they wasn't ready for this part. And so, at the end of the day, they got down to the altar and they made a commitment and a vow to each other that can't nobody bust through this. And I love that. So when you make that commitment together and you're on the same page, when it comes to people, you have to make a decision to say, okay, before we get married, who is the people that we can reach out to for advice if stuff starts to go left? Mm-hmm. Who can we go to that you're comfortable with me telling them, about you and us and all this other kind of stuff? And who are you? Even if it's separate people,
you have accountability partners.
You got to set that up before you get married, and you have to commit to that, because it's a whole nother thing where you say, okay, these are people that we can talk to, and then you go, try to have that conversation and it's false, then you really can't. Then you have to think of a backup plan. You always have to be proactive with that. So, and when it comes to advice from other people, don't do it. Just don't, because you don't know where you don't know how that advice came to be. How are you so smart to where you know this right now? Because you went through it, so this advice is coming from pain right now? Okay, we got a problem.
And see, I always think of it too, especially when you involve family, that you might not be mad at that person. You might get over it, but your family will hold a grudge.
They're going to hold a grudge, and they're going to bring it up when you try to move on. You be like, oh my gosh, can I live my life? So
I always be like, don't say nothing you don't want somebody to bring back up, because you could be over it and they will not be
that makes it really hard. That just makes it really hard for you as an individual, because then that makes it feel like you can't talk to nobody. So get a therapist.
Therapy. We about to have Robin's clientele shoot through the roof. Like, everybody gonna be in here in therapy.
Get you a therapist, because if you feel that in your relationship that you don't trust other people to share your relationship dynamics with, or your issue, you don't have that couple that you can look up to that's been married for years, that embodies the relationship you like to mirror, or even if they're godly, that they're not godly as what you thought or whatever. You can't go to your pastor. You need a plan B. And sometimes plan B is not always feasible. So therapy, you need to go let that out, because if not, it's just going to keep manifesting and it's going to be all bad.
All right. So after people have met with you, you've coached them or mentored them about marriage. So what is their takeaway? What do you want them to take away after they've had a meeting with you about getting ready to get married?
About getting married, or after the altar? After they've already said I do.
After they've already said I do. I like that one. We've talked about getting to the altar. What about after the altar? What do you want them to walk away with?
That they can always come back. They can always come right back to me at no additional cost. I don't charge, once you pay me my fee now. That's the
whole entrepreneurship
show. Once you get into that, because I think, like I said, I respect the sanctity of marriage. I think that it's very important. A lot of people don't always have the resources that they need. So I don't ever want somebody to say, oh, I need help, but I can't call Sharnise. She helped me before, but I can't call her now. I've been with you now since the beginning, since the beginning of before, and I walked you through the altar. I met you at the altar. I want to be there afterwards. So call me if you need marriage coaching. Call me if you need some spiritual guidance. I don't charge for that. Come over to my house. I'll cook you dinner. Let's talk.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
I will be at your house.
Sorry.
All right, so drop the information. How can people reach out to you, and how can they get your services?
Okay, you can reach out to me. You can reach me via email, weddingsbycpe.com@gmail.com. You can reach me online, weddingsbycpe.com, or you can reach me on my cell at anytime, 440-497-0024. And I do screen my calls, so don't be calling.
I I never dropped my number for that reason. I just screen my calls.
I screen my calls. I'll be like, hold on, not calling her back. No.
I was like, I actually thought about getting a business line. I was like, I do screen my calls.
It's important because I get people that will try to call me at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's like, you need to respect this sanctity of this marriage. Don't be calling me at 1 o'clock.
All right, so if you had to give us one bit of advice, I'm the bride. I'm on my wedding day. Yes. What advice are you giving me before I walk down the aisle?
My one piece of advice to a bride is to soak it all in. Just soak it all in. Just like literally take that time. I advise all my brides to take it, especially on the wedding day. Once you're dressed, once everybody's out there, ask everybody to leave out the room, and it's just you and God, or the God you pray to, or just you and your space and your universe, and just soak it all in. Think about your journey, think about how you got there, think about your future, envision it all. Because if you want to run, that would be the time. Just run right there. But you want to remember things, and all the hustle and bustle of planning a wedding, you really do forget about the relationship. So think about your man. Think about who you about to marry. Think about your wife if you're a guy, you're alone. Think about your wife and manifest all of that. I do believe in the power of the laws of attraction. So if you think in negative thoughts all the way down the aisle, that's what it's going. You're gonna set the tone. So take that 5 minutes to just soak it all in.
Well, Sharnise, I want to thank you for coming on today and giving us this advice.
Me.
Whether you guys have a conventional or unconventional marriage, whether your family is blended or not, just remember that it's all about you and how you want your relationship to go. It all starts with you. You are the one who can predict how your future will go, and your love life, your marriage, your children. You have to actively be involved in that part of your life. Guess what, hotties? You can catch me and the hottest kids at justoneHotMom.com, or follow us on all our social media at Just One Hot Mom. Cheer on the Falcons. Tomorrow is their homecoming game, and my son is playing the game. So woohoo, LE Falcons. I'll be out there with them. Guess what, hotties? You've been tuned in and you've been elevated. Talk to you soon.